What's up, everyone? You know what day it is. It's time for your next dose of Maintenance Monday with your host, that Wounded Warrior guy. That's me. And today I'm going to give you guys some steps and examples on how to identify the deficiencies that we're supposed to be coming up with on Mondays and how to better understand the issues that you may be dealing with, but you're not able to articulate or to put into words, which is making it more difficult for you to attack that deficiency in a healthy way. But before we get into all that, I want to remind everybody that if you are enjoying this content, make sure to throw me a like. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel if you want to continue to see these videos and if you are able to relate to the content that I'm putting out to you guys. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into it. So today, a little bit different than the previous Maintenance Mondays that we've done, where we sit down and I give you guys a recap of my previous weeks. I think we've kind of gotten an idea of what Maintenance Mondays are supposed to be and the direction that I want this channel to go in. So today, we're going to go a little bit deeper into how I personally approach my Maintenance Monday and how I am able to really understand what my personal faults are and how to direct my attention to those deficiencies and come up with a healthy strategy in how to improve those areas of my life. So, I came up with some steps that I personally use to identify and approach those problems. And I wanted to share that with you guys because I want to make sure that if you guys are having issues, that I give y'all as much information as possible that might be able to benefit you guys with the problems that you're having. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it. And you guys already know the first thing that I like to do whenever I'm feeling a certain type of way or if I'm having a difficult time, I write in the diary. So step number one, write down how you feel. Make sure to have a log of your daily, it doesn't even have to be your daily struggles. Just kind of do a recap at the end of every day or at the end of every week of how your week was, what you did, and how you felt after you did those things. Like if you're struggling and doing certain things, I struggle whenever I go outside the apartment. I socialize with other people. I get caught in conversations I'm unprepared for. So when I come home, I write about it. I try to do it as soon as possible to make sure that that content, that information is fresh, so I can put it down on paper and I can identify the emotions that are connected with those thoughts. So, step number one, write down how you feel. So I would suggest at the end of every week, write down what you did and how you felt afterwards. The second thing I want you guys to do after you write down how you feel and the things that you've done is I want you to try to identify key points of whatever it is that you wrote down, that you have a strong connection and that there's strong emotions associated with that key point. Now, that is something that takes a little bit of practice to kind of figure out, but key points are what in my therapy classes we refer to as stuck points. Those are things that we get hung up on that prevent us from progressing, from healing, from moving past things that are that we're continually struggling with, right? So an example of some of my stuck points that I had developed unconsciously after my accident are things like I am a failure. I have no control over my future. I have to constantly check and recheck things to make sure that I haven't missed anything. It is my fault what happened. Those are things that we tend to tell ourselves in order to move past an issue, but we have such an emotional connection to those things that whenever we engage in things that could bring up those same emotions, that step point prevents us from healing in a proper way, right? So let's say that you're in your journal, you're writing down how you feel, and you say to yourself, I went outside, I did all these things, I felt uncomfortable, and I got insecure, so I came back inside. A key factor of that could be, it could be, whatever you read it as, but it could be, I feel uncomfortable around other people, or I feel uncomfortable in uncertain circumstances, something of that effect, right? So you identify those key factors that you have a strong emotional connection with, right? So I feel uncomfortable, or I feel anxious, therefore I'm uncomfortable, therefore I want to separate myself from that situation, if that makes sense, right? So you identify that key point that you have a lot of emotion towards in that particular situation. The key factor is your discomfort around others, that you associate anxiety, potentially fear, and that causes you to want to separate yourself, right? So you identify that key point, write down the key point. Then, what I want you to do is I want you to make a goal, an achievable goal. We're not shooting for Everest here. All right, we're climbing Pinnacle Mountain. We're not climbing Everest. We're climbing a hill. We're gonna take the hill before we attempt the mountain. Okay, so in that situation, all I want you to do in that situation, a good first goal could be this week. I am going to strive to give everybody that I meet a compliment. Okay, whether it's reciprocated or not, give them a compliment. Say something to individuals in that particular situation. I feel uncomfortable around others. I feel anxiety because I'm uncomfortable around others. So I have to separate myself, or I avoid situations. With that particular key factor that we've identified in our journal, what we're going to do is we're going to make something very achievable, like I am no longer going to avoid everybody that I come across. Instead, this week I'm going to try to give these people compliments, not necessarily striking up a full-blown conversation. I'm going to give them a compliment, something achievable, right? And this, not just for this particular example, guys. This is just an example. This can be for anything you identify. It can be something like, I can't bench press 300 pounds, right? So I'm not going to try 300 pounds. I'm going to try, 135 pounds or 95 pounds or the bar, right? Something achievable. And we're going to work up to whatever that goal is, right? So we have our goal, something achievable. Then what I want you to do is I want you to come up with an alternate thought that can reinforce and motivate what your achievable overall goal is, right? That's going to help drive you. That's going to keep you from being discouraged, right? Because we attempt goals, like I said, in achievable steps and stages, but it's okay to come up short. It's okay to fail at certain things. We don't want to get discouraged. So what we're going to do is we're going to create that alternate thought that's going to help drive us through those barriers that we are inevitably going to encounter, because any goal that's worth pursuing is going to be tough, right? So come up with that alternative thought. An alternative thought to that main example I gave you guys at the beginning could be something like, it is possible that the people I am socializing with are judging me, and it's possible that I am perceiving my environment correctly. However, it is unlikely, and it is important that I socialize in order to continually progress and heal and expand my circle of friends. right? So we're understanding that our fears are natural, they're normal, and they're not completely, out of space type thing. But we have to distinguish between the possibility and the likely that our emotional connection to our key factors or stuck points is realistic, right? So if we are afraid to socialize because we are fearful of judgment and criticism, and we don't engage in those types of environment, it's because we're telling ourselves that it's likely that we are being judged, we are being criticized, that people are um, making snap judgments about us before we engage in them. Now, this is all an example, right? However, we have to recognize that the likelihood of that being a possibility versus likely, we have to be able to distinguish between that. Yes, it's a possibility, however, it's unlikely, right? We might be judged by individuals, but it's unlikely that we are being judged by everybody we encounter, if that makes sense. Therefore, it's not healthy to avoid all social groups, right? It's natural to have that internal fear, but it's not healthy to go to the extent that we're avoiding everybody that we could potentially encounter because of that key factor that we identified in our diary, right? So, just to recap, guys, whenever we are approaching our maintenance Monday, what I want you guys to do, I want you to write down how you feel. I want you to identify key points in the diary that you have a strong emotional connection with, i.e., a stuck point, something preventing us from progressing, from healing, from being all that we can be. Then I want you to come up with a goal, an achievable goal, something that is within your grasp, something that's not unrealistic. We have to take the hill before we attempt the mountain. Then I want you to come up with that alternative thought to help drive that motivation for you to continue to pursue those goals whenever times get difficult and you have those barriers that you have to overcome. And you will inevitably fail, and failure is okay because we're going to have that alternative thought that motivates us to continue to pursue that goal that's way out there. Not the first goal that we set, but the overall goal. Like when we say this week I'm going to give people compliments, it's not because I want to be better at giving people compliments, although it could be. But more than likely, in that situation, it's because we want to be able to socialize while maintaining our level of safety, trust, and comfort. That's a big goal, but we start out small. That's why it's important to have that alternative thought, because that alternative thought, when we experience those discomforts throughout this process to achieve that goal, we can come back to that alternative thought and we can be like, okay, this is how I felt today in this stage of my process. And it's possible that the way I perceive that situation is correct, but it's unlikely. And it's important for me to continue to push forward because this is what I'm trying to achieve, because this is what I want, right? So just keep those steps in mind. Moving forward with our Maintenance Mondays, that's what I want you guys to do. That 4-step process to help identify what our goals and what our deficiencies are so that we can write down what those deficiencies are, we can identify them, and we can approach them in a healthy way. And we can also understand that it's okay to break up goals, big goals, into several stages, into several steps, and we can attack them in small pieces. We don't have to just try to go for the whole thing at one time and then, well, more than likely, we are going to fail if we try something too overwhelming. And if we don't have that alternative thought, then we can become discouraged, and then we can fall back into that same rut, and we're not healing, we're not progressing, we're not maintaining ourselves. So let me know, guys, if this video was beneficial. This is something that I use on a weekly basis. This is how I come up with my goals. This is how I identify my stuck points, and I hope it's helpful for you guys. So that's the video for today. Get down there in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about this. I hope that you can take something from this, and I hope that it helps you moving forward. So before I get off here, guys, like always, even if you don't realize it, even if you don't believe it, there is a warrior in every single one of you, and I see it. Take care.